Okay, folks, we're back for the next step. We're going to be working with complementary color value, where we'll be making these spheres look as though they're three-dimensional by mixing complementary colors. Now, complementary colors are those that are directly across from each other on the color wheel. So if we look, for example, at violet and yellow are directly across from one another in the color wheel, and these then are complementary colors. Similarly, red and green directly across from each other on the color wheel, complementary colors. And then finally, orange and blue across from each other on the color wheel to give us those color combinations. So for this project, what we're going to be doing is making a simple circle and trying to give quality of light in both of these compositions. I'm looking as though the light is coming from one direction, right? And rotating around to make this transition from light to dark. So here I've got two different complementary color values. I want you to choose two different ones to make two of these spheres to practice with the mixing of these colors. So I have violet and I have yellow mixed in combination to get this transitional hue or this transitional value, right, from light to dark. Then here I have orange and blue complementary colors moving from orange into blue. And I want you to notice how the colors mix and also practice using marks that wrap around the composition to really give a good sense of the round quality of these objects. All right, so here's how we get started. I'm just going to take something round, again, maybe in the bottom quadrant of your composition. Just simply trace a nice round circle. Could be anything. It is helpful if it's, you know, a nice symmetrical circle. Trace two of these, okay. There we go. And then I'm just going to start by thinking about the colors that I'll choose for this. So I guess the first one I'll do is a combination that looks like I should clean up my palette a little bit here. Let's get rid of the green. Well, maybe I'll do green and red. That won't be so bad. I got a lot of green on there. Let's start with that. So I'm going to mix up a red first. And I'm just going to take a good combination of both the vermilion and the crimson to get a nice red color. And I'm just going to simply start by getting this nice and saturated. And I've got the green going. Now I can use two brushes at once. So I'm going to activate the green here. It's a pretty nice looking green. I'm going to add a little this darker green that's right here, which is nice. I'm just going to add this into it as well. So for this, you can feel free to use all the colors here, but I do want you to really make up some nice complementary schemes that you can mix between. So I've got two brushes. The first one, I'm going to use the red. Again, I'm considering my light source coming from this direction. So I'm just going to paint this and think about kind of circular motions with your brush work so that you get those marks to help add contours to the overall composition. So I'm going to work kind of really wet to begin with. So I'm going to add this a little bit thin and kind of watery. Try to stay in the lines the best you can, even if you need to turn your composition. So, you know, you'll find a comfortable way to make an arc, and you can turn your page to help you do that. All right, so I've got my red started. And I'm just going to bump up the contrast a little bit more as I go into here and add a little bit more color. And then I'm going to grab my other brush with green, and I'm going to start bringing the green into this. I'm going to start at the base, which is where we have you know, the darkest areas down here, and I'm going to slowly transition that into the red. So you'll notice what happens when you mix complementary colors. You get these kind of muted tones, right? So oftentimes the complementary colors will darken each other. And they'll also push more towards earth tones. So you'll see more browns and ochres and different grays and things like that that start to happen. So it's going to take a few kind of layering process. You know, I wouldn't expect really, really smooth, fluid results out of this. What you want to try to do is get the mixture from one complement to the next and allow that sort of transitional hue to happen in between. So again, I might add a little bit more of this green here, this darker green, to give a little bit more contrast. on the edges, and I'm just going to kind of slowly work this up. Now the layering process is important too. Once this dries a little bit more, I'll be able to add more layers more easily. But ultimately, I'm using short brush marks that are following the contour of the sphere to try to get a nice transitional tone. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I've got my red and green combination. I had to go through a few different layers, kind of adding, working over another layer, adding a bit more, kind of working back and forth. But you can see I've got a nice transitional tone from red into this darker hue into a green. And the green becomes pretty dark with the combination of the complementary mix. So work with one of the spheres, work with another combination so that you have a nice combination of values, and really consider the type of hues that you get when you start to mix complements together. So you'll see the yellow will start to turn into these brown hues into the violet, and same with the orange to the blue, and even the red to the green. So use the darker color as the shadow color, use the brighter color as the highlight color, and really experiment mixing between those different combinations of complementary color to get different values to go across. So that's step 2. First step's color wheel. Second step is the complementary color value. And I'll start the next video talking about the next step.